Welcome back, Second Look sports fans. It's episode 50. I'm your host today, Justin Arenburg, and joined along with me is Brandon Brown. Unfortunately, we don't have Alex Mandarino or Christian Chiniti as they are working for their their actual shows for their companies right now. That's the best way to put it. TSN and Sportsnet. But yeah, it's just me and Brandon doing this show, and it's a perfect show because it's episode 50. It's a milestone show, and Canada just played its first game with NHL players back in their lineup for the first time in 12 years. Brandon, this game was electrifying. This game had it all, even though the crowd was pro Czechia because it's overseas in Italy. The Czechia crowd showed up big time. Unfortunately, they were basically just put to rest in the second period because they did not want to cheer after that because their team was down so big and was getting controlled. But yeah, dominant win for Canada, 5-0 versus Czechia. What is the biggest thing you learned about Team Canada from today's win?
Well, Justin, happy to be here on episode 50. And yeah, like you said, Canada giving us that 50, that 5-0 win today. Pretty ironic. The women too, I believe, took a 5-0.
Yeah, they did. They won
win against
5-0.
Finland. So everything's coming up 50 today. Yeah, there you go. But in terms of your question about what I took away, I'd say it was kind of, I'm not going to say any one individual player. I thought a lot of guys played great. Obviously, I think people expect Czechia to kind of be approaching that class of kind of international hockey, but this might have been a result where you kind of see they're not quite there yet. But I would say what excited me the most about this team was just their ability to kind of turn it on once they kind of saw that blood in the water. It was kind of a quieter first period. Both teams had some chances. Canada had some great chances, and you got to credit Lucas Dostal for keeping the score, 0-0 until the final seconds of the period when Cale Makar, puts one through and you think he's got the goal, and turns out it's Macklin Celebrini. And from that time of the game on, the Canadians, they just absolutely dominated, I felt, and they just felt at that point they recognized they were the better team, and they kind of went to work. You saw a lot of the speed, the talent, and of course, the size of Team Canada kind of take over the game. That's pretty much all I can say, is that they showed their dominance, and they showed why they are probably the favorite to go on and win gold in this tournament.
Yeah, for sure. Now, the one thing I would say is the one thing that really stood out to me was how physical the team was. Like, they were, from the jump, physical. It was Connor McDavid's hit in the first period that kind of set the tone for the whole game. Even Marshy after the game said, "Good hit, Willie," on the first shift, and he goes to Tom Wilson, that is, and he goes, "That wasn't me, that was Connor." It was like that kind of moment where you're like, "Oh, if he's gonna do it, everyone is gonna do it. Everyone can do it if Connor McDavid's hitting." And then you saw Nathan MacKinnon follow it up with a big hit of his own in the first period to get himself engaged into the game as well. Those two, if they are going to be hitting the way and playing that physical, you know that the whole team is bought into this physical style of play, that they're going to then use their depth to kill you. Because that's what they did against Czechia today. That was the biggest takeaway for me, was, second biggest takeaway, because I had a big one in terms of Benner, but we'll get to him. But the second biggest takeaway was just the depth that they had, that they were able to deploy. And yes, Czechia was able to stay with them, I would say, in the first period. They didn't outplay them, but they were able to stay with them in the first period. But by the time the second period rolled around, Canada's depth just killed them. Like, it wasn't even close by that point. And like you said, they realized that they were the better team and they could take over. But I think that was just a part of the game plan in terms of, let's just ride the course. They're not going to be able to maintain what we're playing at for 60 minutes, only 20 minutes. And that ended up being the case in the end of the game when they had a 5-0 lead, and honestly played dominant for most of the game. It felt like they controlled the puck by the third period. It didn't feel like Czechia could even get a scoring chance. Connor McDavid had 14 scoring chances of his own in the game compared to Czechia only having 12.
I saw this.
They had 12. Like, it was like he outchanced them by himself. Like, it was a really good team performance, I thought. And Well, and we'll
Yeah.
get into Benner if you want. Like right now, like it's just this was the biggest storyline coming into the tournament. Like, sure, the defense is probably not the best in the tournament. You can say that Sweden has a better defense, and you can say the US has a better defense, and I would not argue with you. But the but they can definitely hold up. That's the thing. They can hold up. The thing that was questionable was whether or not Canada's goaltending would hold up and why Jordan Binnington was even on the team, considering he had some of the worst numbers in the NHL this season. He I'm not going to say he answered all the doubters because he's going to get judged for what happens later on in this tournament, but he definitely proved that he can play on this team, having a 26 save shutout, and was brilliant in my opinion. He made big saves in the first period when, like I said, the game was even, that two teams were stride for stride. And honestly, if he would have let one in then, like, I'm not saying they would have lost the game by any means, but like it would have put Canada on their toes a little bit and it would have made them chase a little bit more in a different situation. Honestly, I just thought he was perfect today. He was just what they needed. And there's a moment in the game where he gets ran into. I'm pretty sure, I forget who it was that ran into him, and Thomas Harley is getting into it with the Czechia player in front of the net,
Yeah.
and even Binnington, who has a short temper, who we usually see go after people for that, he was just like, Harley, it's okay, man, it's okay. We don't have to do it. It's okay. Just go play the game. Like it was kind of crazy. I don't know. What did you think of Binner's game?
No, I mean, that moment in particular, very impressive for him to be able to keep his calm, kind of understand where they were in the game and that they didn't need to get into anything extra like that. But I thought he did exactly what he needed to do to ensure that he was going to be the guy moving forward. And while we'll definitely see, I assume maybe Logan Thompson in the net
Hmm.
tomorrow,
Yeah,
today against the Swiss on Friday. But I think, like, I don't think there's anything that he can do right now to take over the net, or anything that wouldn't suggest that Bennington's going to be the guy for them, for the rest of the tournament. As long as the moment is big, I think he's going to be the one to answer the call. And I think you're right. Like, he showed that he can handle kind of the different situations that international hockey can show when you're really playing in the
yeah,
IHF or double IHF as opposed to Four Nations, which was a fully NHL event.
yeah,
Um, it's a lot
for
different, and
sure.
I think he's kind of showing that he's capable of being that guy, and I think we'll see him continue to get better as the tournament goes on too. Because when the big game calls, he's usually there to, like I said, answer the bell. So I'm excited
That's
to
the
see what
thing,
we're able to
right?
get. Yeah,
Like I was listening to Overdrive the other day. I think it was either yesterday or Tuesday. And Brian Hayes was talking about, he had a legacy section where it was about like whose legacy can be impacted the most by winning here. And at number 2, behind Connor McDavid, he had Jordan Binnington. And for a second I was like, this is kind of weird. Like, why would you have him there? But the more I think about it, the more I just like I understand it more, because if he wins, if he's the guy that they put in net to win the tournament, and he goes on and has this type of a tournament again, where he did in the Four Nations final, where he did in the Stanley Cup playoffs, he is just one of the goalies where in a big game situation you can trust him. Like it doesn't matter his stats for everything else. You give him a big game, he knows the moment, and he's going to live up to it. That's the type of performer. If he goes on to win this tournament, he will be remembered as, personally. You can't knock him for anything else. It doesn't matter about his NHL play after this. It will be Jordan Binnington won the Four Nations final. He did that by himself, not by himself, but like, if he's not who he was in that Four Nations final,
a game
especially in the
changer. Yeah.
overtime, they don't win that game. USA wins that game. If he's not who he was in Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final in 2019, the St. Louis Blues aren't Stanley Cup champions. It's the Boston Bruins. If he is going to do this once again, he will be remembered for one of the most clutch goalies in Canadian history. Like, it just will be that way. Like, and that's the type of thing that I think he's building towards, and that's what he proved today. Like, in a way, like, he proved, hey, I can be that guy. I can be the guy that you trust in the gold medal game to go out there and win a 1-goal game. Like, it's just it's just rinse and repeat for Jordan Binnington in big
Yeah.
time games. That's what it
Yeah.
is.
He's definitely putting himself in that category, like you said, of guys that, in terms of Canadian history, it's like, you're talking about the legends of like Martin Brodeur and Patrick Wall, at least internationally. And then from there, Binnington will be the next guy if he can go and win a gold for
Yeah.
this club. It's not like Team Canada in the Olympics has a long story history. We can't forget that before 2002 they hadn't won a gold medal in like 50 years. So it's
Yep.
one of those things where it's more about the modern history, and if he can separate himself in that way, how many guys active or retired have a Stanley Cup championship as well as a Olympic gold. He'll become
Yeah.
one of the few guys, and he'll be
Like
joining those Canadian greats who have also done that. So it's going to be one of those
even
things that separate himself. Go
even
ahead.
even Carey Price, who won 2014 the gold medal,
He doesn't
and
have that. He's
Roberto
missing the one
Luongo
thing. Yeah.
did not
Same
they
with him. Yeah.
did not earn the Stanley Cup championship, and he has it. Like, he
Yeah.
has what everyone, like, wants in terms of the Stanley Cup, and he has the chance to go win a gold medal. Yeah, so I really think that he is one guy that his legacy will be remembered forever in a positive way, no matter what. Like,
Yeah. And
Four
it's
Nations is
maybe
one thing. If he can win
maybe
this,
look at
it
it.
takes him to a whole nother level.
Yeah, and maybe like people are gonna look at him differently. Maybe now, like he kind of, not that he obviously has had a great career, and obviously it culminated in a incredible Stanley Cup run with the Blues, but there was talk about him potentially going to Edmonton.
Oh,
How does
yeah.
that potentially change his career? Like if he can go somewhere that has a chance to win another Stanley Cup, like we could be talking about one of the guys who, like you said, not just maybe his career, because I don't think
Yeah.
when you look back, his numbers maybe aren't going to be the greatest, career wise in the NHL, but he will, like if he can figure out a way to kind of have a late kind of career resurgence here with maybe another team, you'd be talking about, yeah, one of the greats in terms of what he's able to do in playoff or tournament style scenarios where like the goalie is your most important player, and
Yeah.
he's come up strong every time.
100%. Like, like, it's gonna be interesting, like, Doug Armstrong's trade value for Jordan Binnington's probably gonna go up if he continues to play this way this tournament. Like,
Yeah.
it just proves that you get him into the big game and he's gonna perform for you. So, I think that, honestly, when we talk about, St. Louis and the whole situation there and his numbers there, it's mind-blowing to think, like, how is this guy this bad in St. Louis? Is it because it's just a Monday night game in December that he just doesn't really care about as much because it's not as big as the games that he's played in before? Or is it just like the way that St. Louis defense plays in front of him and they're not getting their sticks in the right
Yeah.
positions, they're not checking people at the right times to, pin the puck and take the puck away from the forwards coming into the zone, like, and they're getting great opportunities against him. Like, it might be just little things like that Jordan Binnington is struggling with in St. Louis, and if he gets the opportunity, like he is right now, to play in front of a great team or a better team in the NHL even, like, he's gonna perform even better. So, yeah, it's just an interesting conversation because you look at him and it's like, how is this guy one of the worst goalies by statistics in the NHL this season? But yet John Cooper, when asked about it post game, he was like, "When did you decide Binner might be your starting goaltender?" And he's like, 358 days ago. Um, and if you look that up to this exact date on Thursday, February 12th, that would be February 20th, 2025, which is the day of the Four Nations final. So that all adds up. Now, it's just very interesting to me. It's mind-blowing to be sitting here thinking about a guy that was that bad in the whole regular season and then has that type of performance today. It's just interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think I do take him by his word that at that point last year, what really was going to happen other than maybe Binnington getting hurt himself. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think there was really anything that was going to derail his opportunity to start game one of this tournament. And I think it's gone exactly as they had hoped it will. And they just will hope for continued success going forward in the net. Cause I think, like you said, that's been their biggest question mark going into these, two tournaments that we're now playing. And if he plays well enough, it's definitely in the cards for Canada to take both when that maybe wasn't expected, before we got to the Four Nations last year.
Outside of him, is there anyone else today that, like, just shocked you or impressed you? Is there anything from Canada's game that, like, just stood out? We talked about the physicality. We talked about McDavid being good. We talked about McKinnon setting the tone as well. The power play, we can touch on it if you want, but that's just, we already knew that was going to be great. It's gross. It's unfair with those four guys on the ice. And I mean, Makar, McKinnon, Crosby, and McDavid, and then you put Reinhardt out there. It's just unfair. And then we talked about Binner, obviously, and like I think that might, like, there's one other guy, I guess, that entertained me or like surprised me today, and that was Drew Doughty. Like, were you
For sure.
pleasantly surprised with his performance? Like,
Yeah,
he
I thought it
he
was
played a solid, like, I think he played close to 20 minutes. I think it was like 18:59 or 19:59. I think it was
right.
somewhere close in that range, and he played pretty
Yep.
solid, I thought.
No, he definitely did. He did exactly, he looked almost like the 2014 version that we saw him, in Sochi, and he looked great. I thought it was maybe a little too early to say that, he wasn't going to be impactful, in these Olympics, because I think when you look at Drew Doughty's career, it's not always the loudest game, but he's so dependable, and he's so good with his stick and his skates. He's always in the right spot, and I think that that's exactly the kind of guy that they needed on this defense to kind of just settle everyone down and to know and understand that they have a role, and he's going to fill his just as well as everyone else. So he was
Yeah.
great, but I was going to say Crosby. I thought obviously he did his thing. He could look great.
Crosby was good, but yeah.
But I think the line, I was impressed by the line of him with Marner and Mark Stone, the two Vegas guys on his
Mhm.
flanks. Obviously we saw the great play by Marner to Stone there for that. I think it was the second goal. And even just throughout the game, I thought that line got really good and was moving the puck well. And I think that's a line where, as a third line, they're going to have a lot of chances, I think, to, obviously against some of the weaker teams, like they're going to be
Yeah.
dominating, when you get that, once you start getting into depth. But even against the Swedens, the USA, if they get there, it's like that's a line where they can maybe take advantage of some of the other teams that once you get down the lineup a little bit, I don't think any other team's going to be able to put out the type of quality that Canada does at that point. So that was
Yeah.
one thing that I was excited to watch. And if Marner moved around a little bit at the Four Nations, if he can find a home there and they start getting going, we know that once he has chemistry with a line, he can play really well. So I'm excited to see how they continue to do it. But yeah, I would say that's one thing that was really, pleasantly surprising, was just seeing that chemistry all across. Maybe it was just the Four Nations in general having that opportunity to play as kind of a unit. Most of those guys are back. So it was just like the fact that they came in and even though they needed, 19 minutes and 50 seconds or whatever before they got their first goal, 55 seconds maybe.
Yeah.
Um, it
Mhm.
felt like they weren't as kind of not that they were lost at the Four Nations, but it didn't take as long for
Yeah.
them to kind of find that instant chemistry.
Yeah, for sure. And you can, sorry, John Cooper even attested to that. He's like, the fact that we played at the Four Nations, like, obviously they brought in a couple other new guys. Three of them scored: Nick Suzuki, Bo Horvat, and Macklin Celebrini. Um, Even though they brought in a couple new guys, having that week or 2 weeks together last year really helped them, he said, coming over this time and just feeling like everything's kind of more natural, and it's not like, "Hey, we have to adjust to this." And it probably also helps, for Marner in particular, when you talk about chemistry, he's playing on a line with Stone, and I think that helps as well, considering the Vegas connection now. He's built up chemistry with Stone over the course of the season, playing on the power play as well with him. He doesn't play in a line with him usually, but on the power play, obviously in practice, you're going to see the two work together. It's just like, I think Marner probably benefited from that. Obviously, last year he didn't have anyone that he would have played with on his team. So I think that you're probably seeing that. Uh, I don't think Crosby's gonna end up being the third line center on this team. I just don't. I think that they're gonna try to put Crosby up into a top six role. I don't think I like Suzuki in the top six role personally. I think he's more fit for, especially because he was playing on the wing. I think he's a great center, and I think that he probably fits in as the 3C or 4C, wherever you want him to be. He's definitely in the lineup. It's just you can switch him, Bo Horvat, around if you really want to. But I think that Crosby's shouldn't be the defensive center. Like, put that on Suzuki, free Crosby up to create more offense. That's just the way I think it should go. But it's crazy to think when you think about the depth Canada has when John Cooper's making his lineup card and he goes to turn it in, and it has Sam Reinhart, two-time Stanley Cup champion, back to back on the fourth line. Scored 57 goals in the league before. He's having a great season, and he's on the fourth line. And he was one of the 6 first players locked onto this team. Like, that's the kind of depth this team has. And like you said, no one can attest to it. No one can match it up front. The US is really good. Sweden is really good, but they just don't have the same type of firepower up front that Canada does. And we're going to see that throughout the tournament. I really do. But yeah, is there anything else from today's game other than just a really solid performance by the team?
No, I mean, I think you hit on everything there. It'll just be interesting to see how the tournament continues to develop. Obviously, with more teams, could come more, odd results. We saw Finland lose their first game.
Yeah.
We might see some more upsets as things go on, but I think everyone's hoping that we just get that big USA Canada matchup at some point during the medal round. So I think we're kind of gonna continue on, and obviously Canada, Switzerland. I think they'll play France. It's not
Yeah, they
exactly
play
murderer's
Switzerland
row
and
through the
France.
group. Yeah,
But
so I
yeah,
think
it's
it'll really be like once we get to the quarterfinal stage, what do things look like, and what are they going to go with, and how do they match up against whoever they end up facing at that point. So I'm just excited
yeah,
to see how everything continues to play. Yeah.
exactly. And the thing is, like, I think, like, when you look at game 2 tomorrow against Switzerland, we talked about they're probably gonna put Thompson in the net. This is coming out tomorrow, but or actually, sorry, it's gonna come out tonight. But you're gonna put Thompson in the net, and most likely, unless you're gonna surprise us and put Kemper in the net, but you're probably gonna get Seth Jarvis into the game. Who do you think comes out for Seth Jarvis tomorrow if he's going into the game? I personally think he's gonna get a game tomorrow. And Travis Sanheim, probably because Josh
Yeah,
Morrissey's
yeah,
hurt, but
yeah. Sanheim, I
hopefully
think, makes
not
them
long term.
100%. No, that's something that we did mention is that, yeah, Josh Morrissey didn't come back I think it was the third period, and was
Second
listed out
period.
for the rest of the second period. So he was out for the rest of the game after that point. But hopefully he's not out, long term. Hopefully he can get back in at some point in the tournament. But I think they're well protected. Sanheim's a great player. He should be able to jump in and at least help them maybe in a different way than Morrissey. But it won't be any. They won't be any less. Um, they won't be any worse for wear, I'd say.
Yeah, yeah.
In terms of Jarvis, I don't really know what I would really do. I don't. I maybe I would. I don't know if this would even work, but maybe I would take Suzuki out. I don't know. Like
Yeah,
I don't.
like,
I
I
think they'd
saw
want him in there
Suzuki
too.
might be
Like,
the
but
one to go.
yeah, like
Suzuki, I think you could even say Marchand could possibly be the one to sit just for that game.
maybe yeah. I guess
You
as
could
an older
say
guy, you don't need to get him in there.
yeah,
Yeah,
like, I think that there's a couple options, like, Sam Bennett is probably the most likely, to be honest. He played the least amount of time today by any forward. Um,
yeah.
so, like, it's just gonna be interesting to see who comes out, but I do think that Seth Jarvis is going to get a game here no matter what, and tomorrow's probably that opportunity. If not France, like, France is obviously worse than Switzerland, so it just depends on which one they wanna, tinker the lines with, or tinker the players who are actually playing with. But yeah, it's gonna be an interesting interesting match tomorrow versus Switzerland, and um we'll definitely be watching and tuning in to see what happens. But yeah, it's gonna be interesting. Other than that, the USA won their first match against Latvia 5-1. I saw they had 2 disallowed goals in that match. But they still managed to win 5-1. Brady Tkachuk scored the opening goal on an assist from his brother, primary assist from Matthew Tkachuk. That has to be a special moment for the both of them. And then in the other game today, in the fourth game today, it was Denmark versus Germany, and Germany won
I think
3-1.
Germany won that one.
Leon Draisaitl scored 23 seconds into the game, and Tim Stützle had 2 goals as well as Germany, a team that people were picking that were going to be a sleeper and could make some noise, potentially get a quarterfinal upset. They definitely have some star power. I'll put it that way. Like, they have some star power to hang around, and if teams like Italy and Slovakia can hang around in games, why can't Germany? They are better than those teams. So, it's going to be interesting. The Olympics, the biggest takeaway, I am so happy that Olympic hockey is back, because without it, like for NHLers, without it, it's just not the same, and it doesn't have that same vibe. It doesn't have that same aura. It doesn't have the same prestige to it. It's something about the Olympic Games. It's the best hockey I think that we play, like in general. Like like it's better than the NHL. Like in terms of like, I think I would much rather watch a Olympic gold medal game with NHLers compared to a Stanley Cup final game. That's just my opinion. I know it's probably a hot take, but that's my opinion. I think that it just has that aura to it that just a Stanley Cup final game just doesn't have, and it's because it's best on best. But anyway,
I mean,
we'll move.
I do think that you're right. I think it depends, I guess, on like what you're looking for. Like, because of course, the Olympics, especially talking about a gold medal game, at that point,
Yeah.
it's usually like, it's like an NHL All-Star game, right? Like, you're talking about the best group of guys.
Yes.
Minus a few, of course, because they're on other countries. But it's like, yeah, you're talking about the best players put them on and playing all together, which you don't usually get. So I think, but I will say the Stanley Cup final, there is something about not necessarily the best guys getting out there, but the way that they play and the intensity of like a game 7 after you've been through it all with your group. And, usually it is the best team that gets there. And like, the way you have to play, lines 1 through 4, your defense score, your goalies have to be there. So, I think there's definitely like, I think you're right, but I think it's close. I think it's very close,
yes,
because
close.
Once we get to June,
it's close.
It will be a lot.
I think that Olympic hockey or Olympic gold medal, it would rank over another Stanley Cup. Obviously, to me, that's different from a player, because the player goes through all 82 games in the regular season. They put their body through that, and then they go and they try to win 16 playoff games. So obviously that might mean more to them, but I just think winning the Olympic medal to crown you champions of the world is just the biggest thing you can possibly win. And I think it's the best type of hockey we have. Now, I'm not saying Stanley Cup hockey or Stanley Cup final hockey is not close, because it obviously is. And I will say the NHL playoffs are just the best playoffs you can have in any sport. So it does not matter in terms of, like, don't come at me for that.
It's fair.
We will move on to some spring training from one warm country to another, because apparently Italy's warm right now. We go to the U.S. and down to Florida, Dunedin, Florida, where the Toronto Blue Jays have started spring training. This is definitely an interesting spring training, considering the fact that they are coming off losing Game 7 of the World Series by literally a millimeter. And and yeah, we're in a totally new season. Media is trying to put the 2025 season behind them. They asked them questions about the 2025 season on the first day, and then today it was mainly about trying to think about the 2026 season and how you can get back there and complete the job of something that they haven't done since 1993 here in Toronto. So, if you had to give me one storyline from spring training that is just it's the biggest storyline you've seen so far from the Toronto Blue Jays, that is, what would it be?
Well, I mean, for me, the biggest storyline going into the season will be, and even, I mean, spring training, yes, but I think they've already kind of addressed it. It will be what are the updates with on Shane Bieber? I think that's going to be the most
Okay.
interesting thing for me. Is like, I think on the field, not much for me from spring training is going to mean a whole lot. I think what's going to be important is like the messaging for how he's going as we approach opening day. They've already said, "Hey, don't expect him." But soon after
Mhm.
that, we expect him to be at full strength. Basically, he's going to help us throughout the entire season. So, what does the rotation look like? How are they kind of presenting it? What is the messaging? In terms of their long term plans and what they plan to do there. So that's kind of where it is. It's like the rotation and what their plans are without Bieber to start, and how long he might be out and can before he can come back. Because hey, you take him out of the rotation, you take Chris Bassett out of the rotation. Yes, you're adding a guy like Cody Ponce, you're adding Dylan Cease, but there are still question marks a little bit there. So, I mean, you're still wondering to see what this is all going to look like. So, I think not having Shane Bieber, who we have seen now with the Jays, and we're pretty confident in what he was going to be able to deliver, him and Kevin Gosman, great kind of two-headed monster to lead the charge. And then you're hopeful that depth, becomes the best case scenario of those signings at least. And
Yeah.
then you're talking about one other spot, which I guess, they could probably fill pretty easily with a Barrios, it sounds like maybe. So I'm
Yeah.
interested to see what they plan to do and what it looks like with Bieber going forward. Cause I think to me, that's my biggest storyline kind of going into the regular season.
Yeah, I mean, so definitely the pitching. I know you said might be a couple questions there with the pitching staff, but the pitching staff to me has been significantly upgraded from compared to last season. Like this is a much better rotation than it was last season. Now, having said that, the lineup took a hit this season, because you're not gonna have Bo Bichette in there, and that's a bigger bat than people are probably going to realize in the first month. He he was going to lead the league in hits, if he wouldn't have got injured in the last month. So it's going to be a factor, and I'm not to say that they can't overcome Bo, because obviously they made it to the World Series without him. But it's definitely interesting to think that last year the lineup was better and the pitching staff was behind, but this year I think the pitching staff is going to be better than what the lineup is. And I mean, do you agree with that, or do you see it differently?
Well, I mean, I don't necessarily see it differently. I think you're right. Like the rotation is in a better spot than they were going into last season. But I think the same way with the lineup. Like the lineup right now, it's been set in stone ever since Bichette signed with the Mets. Really, like unless they make another trade or make a signing. Like obviously you now scratching out Santander, but the guys in the clubhouse. You know who they're going to be in that lineup for the most part. Now without Bieber, the rotation, like you really only have for me, 3 guys that you're pretty sure about, um, going forward. And then, Barrios, it sounds like is right back in it, and that's gonna be great if he can figure it out. But it's not gonna be about in Francis this year. There's gonna be a Trey Savage, which is great, but
Mhm.
you're still like wondering about that 4th spot. I don't even know if Cody Ponce was expected to be, a full season starter. It sounded like there might have been other plans for him at some point. But now he's gonna be locked in, and he's gonna have a great year coming back from Korea. So um, I think you're right that the rotation's in a good spot, and as long as the guys kind of deliver on what they are supposed to do, it's going to be great. But I don't really know if I'm not sold on
Yes, sure.
all five guys yet until we get there. I guess I think the lineup still has room. Like guys internally, like a Dalton Varsho, he's supposedly going to be at a better strength than he was last year. I expect him to have a good year. You expect the same thing from Vladdy. You hope that Springer, while
Yeah.
you expect a bit of a regression, you hope that he can find some sort of standard, especially for a guy of his age. But then from there, you still need guys to contribute like Clement and Kirk. Like the lineup still looks pretty good, but just like the pitching staff, you need to see it again. You kind of need to get the feel of what kind of year these guys are going to have before you can really understand what the offense is going to do.
Yeah, for sure. I think the thing to me is, like, last year, the lineup had to make up for the pitching staff in terms of, like, if they were having a bad game, which more likely than not, they were going to have a worse game than the lineup in terms of runs given up to runs produced. And they would have to, respond to that and bounce back to that. I think this year, it's more likely that the pitching lineup or the starting pitching rotation is going to be the reason that they're in games more. And then the lineup they're going to have to make up for the lack of production from the lineup that I just don't think is there. As much as last year, I'm not saying it's bad by any means. I'm just saying it's not as good as last year's lineup. So I think that that's where the difference is going to be. The pitchers are going to make up for the lineup this year, whereas last year the lineup made up for the pitchers, if that makes sense. I do agree there are question marks. We got to see if Cody Ponce can last the full season, but I do think that he already knew when he signed he was coming into a starter role. So I do think he was expecting to have a full season as a starter. I think that Jose Barrios is an interesting question mark. I think that Shane Bieber is an interesting question mark. But at the top of the lineup, you still have Trey Savage and you have Kevin Gausman and you have Dylan Cease now. I think that those three can carry the load or carry great starts for the bulk of the season and get you a lot of wins. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting season, that's for sure. That's not the biggest story to me, though. Shane Bieber in general, or the pitching staff, or the lineup. That's not the biggest story to me. The biggest
Let's
story
hear it.
is this guy named Anthony Santander, who is signed to the Toronto Blue Jays for another 3 years after this season, where he signed for 5 years, $92.5 million. I don't think that we have really seen anything in terms of production for Santander throughout his Blue Jays career yet. And he's most likely going to miss the whole second season of this 5-year, $92.5 million deal. This is insane to me. How this guy did not realize I need the surgery in November to only miss maybe 1 or 2 months in the start of the season. And instead, you're now just a couple weeks or a couple days before spring training going to say, yeah, it's not feeling that good. I've got to get this checked out and I probably need surgery. And it means I'm going to be out for 5 to 6 months. I don't think that's right. I think this is terrible. This is a terrible look for the Blue Jays and Anthony Santander. This guy was expected to come in here and hit home runs, and all he's done is basically walk around the bases and have an absolute and terrible fielding performance in the divisional. Sorry, no, the divisional round versus the Yankees. If you remember that play to left field or to right field where he dives for the ball and it lands in front of him and he just looks like an absolute idiot on the field. That's what the play I'm talking about. It's just not good. Like, Anthony Santander not suiting up for the Toronto Blue Jays for the first 5 to 6 months of this year is not a good thing. And then to tell me, oh, he's going to come back in August and September? Well, he did that last year. What did he do? Absolutely nothing. Absolutely jack all. He didn't do anything. So what's to make me believe that he can come back in 5 to 6 months, be healthy, and do that this year? Nothing. So yeah, go ahead. That's the biggest storyline to me.
No, I mean, I think you're right in terms of like what's come out this week it's definitely the biggest news of the week in terms of the Blue Jays for sure. But and you're right. Like, we had BNS on JD's show I think it was on Wednesday, and he was saying like best case scenario for this, they probably could have just done the surgery in June right after he got hurt originally. Like, I get it.
Yeah.
They made the decision with, the decision must have been in tandem, whether it was the Jays okaying what Santander wanted to do maybe
Yeah.
and try to come back later in the year, or the Jays saying, hey, like, let's try to do this for a run. If you're able to come back and be healthy, we'll gladly welcome you back. And that didn't work out. So I think both sides, yeah, obviously have some blame. You hope that they're telling the truth in terms of that there was a setback in January that might have changed
Yeah.
things. You hope that's that, but you
But
don't
if
know,
he
and
got
we're never gonna know.
the problem is
Go ahead.
if he got injured ramping up in January, which means he was basically just soft throwing for the first 2 weeks of the January, and if that's where he got injured and felt soreness, I'm pretty sure it was in his shoulder again, then how in the world did you not realize this back in November? Like, that's the
Yeah.
thing that I'm bothered about, where
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
how did you not realize this until you started soft throwing or ramping up in January? Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. Now, I'm not saying it's not true. Like, I'm sure that they're not lying about this. And I'm not accusing anyone of lying about this, but it's just, it doesn't make sense in the sense, why wait until January to start ramping up and then realize, oh,
Yeah.
I can't move. I can't do this. I can't go.
Yeah.
Like, it just
Well, it's
doesn't make
possible.
sense.
It's possible, again, like I said, that they're trying to, give him the most time to heal. Maybe he wasn't able to do activities until they got to this point. Like, there's so much like weirdness around this whole saga of his last, 8 to 9 months at this point. Like, there really is no reason to believe like anything. There could, like, there's obviously a chain of events, and we don't really know if that's going to come out. But I think for the season, like, we got to just put him out of the mind. Like, you can't
Yeah,
really do anything
you
about it.
can't think about him adding any
You can't.
contribution to the lineup.
Yeah. Yeah, like, until we know for sure that he's gonna be coming back at close to 100%, like, that's when you can start to say, "Okay, what are you gonna do for the Jays?" But for now, it's like, yeah, like, you can't depend on this guy at all. I'd be surprised if, like, he comes back and contributes in a, an impactful way at all this year. So you're kind of gonna be stuck.
I highly doubt it. I
Yeah. So, I
highly
mean, what
doubt
are you
it.
gonna do, right? Like, you gotta hope that you give him the full. Maybe eventually they say we shut it down, give him the full year to recover, try to get back to maybe what he once was. Now we're gonna be talking almost 2 years at that point out of the
That's
game. So it's like, I don't know. Like, yeah, it's looking back. Looking back, it's not been a very good start to his Blue Jays tenure. But you're right. There's a lot of runway ahead of him if he could figure it out. But I think at his age, I don't know that most people have too much hope that that's going to be the case.
like, he was never gonna hit 44 bombs, which he did in Baltimore.
No.
But you expected him to come in and
Yeah.
hopefully give you 30,
Yeah,
especially
no
this
doubt, no
year.
doubt. Yeah, yeah. No, yeah, I think the
And
hope was that
you're not gonna get any.
you.
Like,
I will say that I do think.
he was the biggest player in the offseason that was talked about as having a rebound season that could help contribute to the Blue Jays.
Yeah,
And that's why they don't need Bo Bichette 100%, because they can get a guy like Santander that gave them absolutely zero production last year and then get more production out of them this year. And now this guy that was supposed to do that is an absolute X on that thing, and he just is going to do nothing. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's
yeah,
ridiculous.
yeah. I do think it was. I don't think it helps the look that they were pushing that hard for Kyle Tucker, and a lot of people were saying, "Well, how much they need Kyle Tucker in the outfield? Like, there's going to be such a platoon. What's going to happen there?" And it's like, oh, maybe they did have an idea that they had an open outfield spot. Like, it's not the best look in
Yeah.
that way either, because if he had said, "Hey, if Santander was going to be healthy," he could have said, "Hey, let's leave the outfield alone, kind of, at least for now. Maybe we can upgrade it later, and let's bring Bo back." And now, like, a lot of people would say, "Hey, we would have taken that over everything." So definitely doesn't help that the way that this offseason has ended for the Jays after it got off to such a hot start, right? Like, it was so good, signing pitchers here and there. You got the
Yeah.
international guy, and then when it came to the one of the two big moves that everyone was expecting this year, it just kind of flamed out, and now they're looking at some serious injury issues. So
It's still a good offseason, though. You picked up Tyler Rogers, you picked up Cody
100%.
Ponce, you picked up Dylan Cease. Like, it's still an outstanding offseason, but yes, you are right. Like, now that we're here thinking about Bo Bichette and Kyle Tucker, and then learning about Santander, Bieber, Francis, I wasn't shocked about. I figured that was going to happen for him, and it's probably just going to be a reset. It was going to be reset to next season. But like that's why you have hopes that like Ricky Tiedemann might give you some innings this year. Jake Bloss, if he can actually get going again. But like that's what I mean. Like it's there are injuries, and that's gonna happen in baseball. It's always gonna happen, but it does put a little bit of a damper on the off season that it was, considering you thought you had everyone at full health coming into the 2026-2027 season. That's the biggest
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. And
And
I mean, they're going to have
Santander
to
leads that way.
start. Yeah. And I think because of that, I think the spring training is what it is. But I think when you get to the regular season, like, I think people were going to want a hot start out of this team because, after that, those kind of news, we'll see how things play out. But like, if they get off to a start like last year, people will understand.
Oh, we have a technical issue with Brandon. Don't worry, he will be back. It's all good. Yeah, he might be back right now. He might have to reconnect his mic, but people will understand, Brandon, that you have to reconnect the mic and see if it's working. It is not working at the
Yeah.
moment, but it's okay. Yeah, I mean, I can fill it here for 1 second. It's gonna be a challenge, I think, this year in terms of getting back to where the Blue Jays were. That's Game 7 of the World Series. You don't really see that happening this year per se, but the hope is that players that improved last season, like Addison Barger, Ernie Clement, Andres Jimenez, those types of players can continue the production that they were producing last year. And even if they have a little bit of regression, hopefully it's not too much and the team can balance itself out. That's the
Yeah.
hope. That's what everyone wants to see. And
Because I
that's the
think,
only way that you're going to make the playoffs.
yeah. And I think you'll agree that like the offensive production last year was kind of unprecedented.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. And for some reason, Brandon's thing is just not working at the moment. I don't know why, but it's interesting. Yeah, the offense was unprecedented, or like was just absurd last year. What they were doing was unseen before in terms of you just didn't think about the production of Addison Barger and Ernie Clement, like I said, that it shocked everyone. And yes, you're predicting that there's going to be some regression this year from those guys, but that's not to say that you don't expect a little bit more from these guys, like even Davis Schneider, even Addison Barger, and Ernie Clement. You're gonna expect there to be some regression, but you're also expecting, hey, you set a little bit of a floor now. You have to at least meet that, and hopefully, again, you can improve and get better. Now that's the absolute hope. And it's going to be interesting to see how the Blue Jays do. Obviously, spring training is just getting underway, like literally just getting underway. And pitchers and catchers are just reporting. The team just showed up today. They're even a little bit early. They didn't have to report today, but Vlad's already in Dunedin training. He was at the facility today. It's good to see. Everyone wants to be back playing baseball. And everyone's committed to trying to get back and win one more game this season. If you are good, Brandon, I don't know if you're back
Yeah,
officially
we'll
yet.
see. I mean, I think we're okay for now, but we'll see what happens here. But you're right. Like
All good.
a lot of it will depend on just what they can recreate kind of from last year, especially some of the guys that
Yeah.
had, their first year of production. Like you said, you mentioned Clement and Barger and these type of guys like Lucas and Miles Straw. Like how much can they impact the team again as much as they did last year? And then the big boys, the Kirks and the Vladdies and the Springers and the Varshos, they're going to have to do their jobs and make sure that they're setting the standard and making sure that the team is able to score as many runs as they're going to need to, because yeah, they should have a better chance to have as good of a regular season as last year because of how much better the pitching might be this season. So we'll see
Yep.
how it goes on. But I can't believe we're already here, and I'm super excited to see spring games
Yeah,
going
it's
on soon, and
crazy.
then
It's
it won't be long
crazy.
before we're back in baseball mode. So
Seeing those guys, like, I just was shocked. I'm not gonna lie, I was shocked. I was like, "Wow, we're already at spring training. Pitchers and catchers are reporting. Vlad's already back at the facility. Oh my gosh, we are almost go time." Spring training is gonna be fun. Obviously, we'll keep up with it, keep up to date with it. And yeah, we'll have you covered. But anyway, last thing we have to talk about here on this podcast today on February 12th is the fact that my New England Patriots lost the Super Bowl. It probably the worst Super Bowl since Super Bowl 48, maybe Super Bowl 50 if you want to put it that way. Cuz yeah, both Super Bowl 50 and Super Bowl 48 were pretty bad. Um but yeah, Patriots lose 29-13. Seahawks covered the spread. They definitely did. Alex hit the under by 1 point, which I'm sure he's definitely happy about. But yeah, the Patriots just honestly the biggest concern for me going into the game. I laid out the blueprint for how they could win the game. And the biggest concern that I don't think I touched on a lot in the episode was just the offensive line and not being able to hold up. That was the biggest concern for me going into the game, and it proved factual during the game as it just. Yeah, the Drake May didn't play great, but also Drake May was underneath a lot of pressure for most of the game. And once you get a quarterback under pressure for a good 3/4 of the game, his timing's just going to be off, and he's going to think he's going to have to rush up even when he's not underneath pressure for one play. Like that's just it's just something that a second year quarterback is just going to have to learn and deal through. Obviously, the shoulder wasn't 100% for Drake May. He had to be shot up before the game. It was reported that had to happen. That's obviously not an excuse. It just, he didn't play great. But obviously, there are some injuries that happen. Will Campbell being one of them. Worst game by an offensive lineman probably in Super Bowl history. And he came out afterwards and said, "Listen, it's not an excuse, but I was playing on a torn ligament for basically the second half of the season. So, as a rookie, you can't just rip Will Campbell. Like he's gonna be good. He's gonna be fine. It's just frustrating that it was that type of performance. Before Brandon jumps in, I guess the only thing I have left to say about the performance was the defense played well enough in the first 3 quarters to win the game. Like they played phenomenal. Christian Gonzalez, in my opinion, was the best player on either team in that game. He saved 2 potential touchdowns for the Patriots, and he almost had another interception. It just like he was the best player in that game, and I wouldn't be shocked if he gets locked up long term in New England after that because he's eligible for an extension. But Brandon, I'll let you jump in here and give your glory to the Seahawks and rip the Patriots.
no, I mean, I didn't really have, I didn't have much of a dog in this fight. I was obviously disappointed after my Bills left the playoffs in a sad way, but I did expect the Seahawks to win. I did expect their defense to lead the way. So for me, the game kind of went as I thought it might. I honestly didn't think the Patriots were going to be so challenged on offense. I thought they would be able to score some more points than they did, and I thought that it was going to be one of those games that, and I think I said this on the pod last week, is like I expected it to kind of get down to the wire, close to it, and then it kind of depended on which team was going to be able to make the big play. And Seattle's defense was just able to make many big plays, and it was throughout the entire game.
Hmm.
I thought that
Yeah.
that they really suffocated. Part of that was obviously dominating Campbell, and it is obviously a tough situation for him to be asked to continue to play. Maybe I'm sure he was down to do it, but it's never a good thing when a player of any ilk has to play injured and has to do their job, while they're incapacitated a bit. So tough for him, but all in all, just a learning experience for the young stars in New England. Obviously, Drake May, the main one. It's like, you take your licks, you get back up, you see what you can do going forward. You don't always get the chance to go to a Super Bowl, so you're going to try your best to put it together and,
Yeah,
and do what you can every day. Um, and I'm just excited to see what they're able to do going forward. I want to see um, what they
I'm
what
sure
what
you
what
are.
their season looks like next year, because it's hard to judge.
I
Like,
think a lot of
and
people don't think that
yeah.
they're gonna make the playoffs, which is very interesting. I just
I
think
don't think
that's
it's out of
very
the I
interesting.
don't think it's out of the question that they make the playoffs, but again, it'll all depend on how they play, to follow up this season. It's easy to kind of do it once, and people want to talk about the schedule. I expect the schedule to be more difficult next year, but that doesn't mean that they
Yeah,
can't
it is.
get better with that schedule and that they're able to string some games together next season and find themselves right back in the playoffs. Do I think they're going to win the division or win as many games as they did this season? Maybe not, but I think it's still
No.
going to be a good team, and they're led by a great coach, and they got a good quarterback. So it's going to be only positive steps from here, and we'll just have to see. I just can't kind of pinpoint exactly what I think they're going to be like going forward.
The 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 defense is gonna be good. The defense is fine. Like, I think the defense is one of the best in the league. We saw that at the end of this season. They were phenomenal. The thing is that you talked about, just briefly, is what they're going to look like next season, in terms of taking that next step. I think it's going to be all about, like, they have cash to spend in free agency, and I think that they're going to beef up that offensive line even more to make it one of the best in the league, because that's what they really need. They need a good offensive line. Drake May had to scramble a lot this season and make plays out of his legs. And for most of the year, he was able to do that. Obviously, when you play the best defenses in the league, by the fourth one, it's going to catch up to you, and you're not going to be able to, they have so much on tape by that time of what your tendencies are and what you're trying to do to get outside the pocket. So you just need a little bit of a better offensive line, in my opinion. And then honestly, I think I like the tight ends. I think Hunter Henry's a great tight end, and he was a number one option for Drake May. I just think that this offseason, the number one goal should be go and get a number one receiver, because they truly don't have one. A guy that's just gonna go win you a game, and that, like, just throw it up to him and you can go win a game. Like, I'm talking some of the best in the league. You got JSN, you have Jamar Chase, you have Justin Jefferson, Puka Nakua. Those type of players can win you games. They simply can. And the Patriots just don't have that on the outside. And it's something that hurt them in this Super Bowl. I really think, it's something that they're going to have to work on.
Quickly, a
So
team that
as
I was just going to say, what do you think as a team that has one of those guys? You mentioned JSN. What do you expect the Seahawks to do next year?
What do I expect the Seahawks to do? I think that they're probably going to have to re-sign Kenneth Walker. I think that that would be a smart decision if they let him walk. Probably just gonna go sign another back, but, like, I think that Kenneth Walker at 25 years old still has a lot of good years in front of him and can be productive, and why not? He just won the Super Bowl MVP, so probably would be nice to, show your team a little bit of loyalty as well, in terms of, hey, you do well for us, we're gonna reward you with a nice contract. I think that their defense is obviously insane. They could pursue. I saw both the Patriots and the Seahawks in potential Max Crosby deals if he gets traded from the Raiders. It would be insane to see Max Crosby added to that
Oh
defense,
my,
but
yeah.
I don't think they need to make any moves on defense, obviously. But offense, I would assume that it's just going to be about keeping that offensive line healthy. And then also, uh, honestly, maybe just an upgrade in tight end. Like, Njoku, who's gonna be a free agent this offseason. Maybe they go sign him. Just because you have Cooper Kupp, who I think is a phenomenal receiver still and can get yards and can be a difference maker. And then I would think I would think that Rashid Shaheed is probably priced out of Seattle, but I'd like to see him back there if I'm a Seattle Seahawks fan. And then JSN obviously can win you the game. So there's not much Seattle's gonna have to do this offseason. They have everything kind of, um, in really good shape right now, and it's not like there's a bunch of old guys that this team's soon going to be outside their window. Everyone seems to be pretty young except for Cooper Kupp, which is totally okay. And yeah, I just think Seattle's going to be good. But before we go, because we should definitely wrap this up. Yeah, I just want you to ask me the one question. I'll let you, if you don't get it right, then we'll just end the podcast and that'll be it. But I'll let you ask the one question that I'm sure a lot of people want to know. And it's totally up to you to get it right, to get the question
is this
right.
Like,
and if not,
is this related to the Patriots? Is this the Patriots, or is this?
It's related to the Patriots, and it's related to the Super Bowl.
Did you like Bad Bunny?
That's the biggest hint I'm going to give you.
Oh no,
no, that's not the question at all. You just
about
ruined
Drake
it.
May? Okay,
ruined it.
I don't know, man. Is it about what? You think he's going to get back to another
Super
Bowl? No, I don't know. I haven't seen a question.
That's the question.
Posed. I'm not a fan.
That's the question.
What, if he'll get back to a Super Bowl?
Well, no. It's not that. It's like guys who go to their first Super Bowl, they start 0-1, they never make it back. Like Joe Burrow hasn't been back. Brock Purdy hasn't been back. Dan Marino never went back. Like,
yeah.
So the only one that did go back so far is Jalen Hurts, and he won Super Bowl MVP. So guess what? I think Drake May is going to win Super Bowl MVP. That's my answer to that question. Don't worry. This was great. This was great.
Yeah. No, I mean, they have a chance. I think they just have to kind of keep doing what they're doing. Like I said, a lot of that is the organization you're in, the team that's built around you, and what you can do. Obviously, like getting through an NFL playoff run is tough. But yeah, like I think Drake May's got as good a chance as anyone to find another way to make their way back at some point. At some point, he's got a long career ahead of him. Like look at the guys he's going to be going up against, right? Like how he's not going to be facing off against Mahomes forever, for Allen forever, Lamar forever. These guys have expiration dates, right? And then you look at the next class, and May seems to be one of those guys that's creeping his way up there.
I will end the show by saying the 2024 draft class might be one of the best of all time by the time it's said and done. Like, it's looking very, very promising right now. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, man. No, for sure.
At least 4 of them. Anyway, that just about does it for episode 50. Like we said, Olympic coverage going to happen throughout. Team Canada obviously taking on Team Switzerland tomorrow, and then Team France later on in the tournament before playing an elimination game later on. And then we also have the Toronto Blue Jays spring training, the NBA, and the All-Star season, Team World versus Team USA. See if they can recreate any magic from the Four Nations face-off that we saw last year, as that's what they took the inspiration from. And then in about a month's time, it's already NFL free agency. So the sports calendar just does not let up. And like in a year like the Olympics, you just go right from the Olympics into March Madness, into the Masters, into Stanley Cup playoffs, into NBA playoffs. Everything just happens, and the MLB season starts. So yeah, it's just a sports calendar year for 2026. But yeah, that just about does it. We'll talk. Yeah, it's insane. It's gonna be a crazy, crazy year, and we're here for it. We absolutely love it. But anyway, thank you for listening. If you want to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, please do, and go watch on YouTube. We also have our Instagram and Twitter handles, and TikTok as well. I forgot about TikTok, but yeah, go give all those accounts a follow, and we'll see you next time in episode 51. Peace.